Hey, g'day, hi, and welcome. I do that. People, my headphones, my speaker's not working. All right, World War III update. And boy, do I have a list for you guys. You know, you guys are always out there. I have to get with back scratch here. This is like my scepter. My back scratch. You guys are always like,
where's the World War III updates? Hey, what, you stop doing them? You don't do enough of them. You should do more of them.
okay, well, you're going to get it now. You're going to get it now. All right, so anyway. I've been, for the last couple of days, all I've been doing is write down just about every little thing I could possibly get. A lot of research. Oh, that stuff's good. It's ongoing. That one's blueberry and peach, I think. Oh, it's really tasty. And, oh my god, I don't even know where to start. I'm going to be a bit all over the map like I normally am. Again, for those of you that might be joining me for the very first time on World War III update, I'm not one of those gloom and doomers that World War III is imminent. I've already done, tons of videos. And I always tell people, don't be afraid to go over even some of my older World War III videos. I date them by the year, not by the actual date. So it's like, I believe I started in 2010. It was like, it might have been just World War III updates. I really don't remember the very first one. It kind of grew into that series, right? So, but then I started doing them by year. But sometimes even if you go back a few years, what you'll find is some of the stuff I was talking about back then is happening now. Because this stuff plays out as it plays out. It's really about connecting the dots so people can get an idea of what's going on in the world. Now, is the world any crazier than it's ever been? Well, no, the world's always been a crazy place. We know that. But one thing that is now, what's different now, is we are crazy in the nuclear age. And really, the things that we're seeing, even during the first Cold War, it is more active now than what it was during the first Cold War. The first Cold War, the men were very stern and ready to respond on all sides, but most of them actually responded with caution. They were a lot more delicate. Now what we have is really psychopathic, reckless leaders that, throw out. I mean, in the first Cold War, if you were to say we're going to preemptively strike Russia, that could have started the war. That's how intense it was back then. Now what it is they're threatening Russia all the time to the point where Russia is completely built up for the Third World War, and so is China. And the rhetoric's going up and up and up. The difference is also too the Russians and the Chinese. They're a little bit better at this game to keep us out of the war. Again, I'm not a fan of either government of the Russians or the Chinese, but you could clearly see that they are trying not to get into the war. They've had so many opportunities to respond. It's not funny. So some sort of black swan event is what's probably going to get us a miscalculation of some sort. All right. So anyway, I'm going to start off, I guess, on this page. So we're going to go into Iran, and in Iran, this is going to throw the Greater Israel Project out of whack because Iran is putting S-300 missile systems around its nuclear facilities. The one nuclear facility that Israel keeps saying that they're making bombs, they're making warheads, Again, I don't think the Iranians, if they have nukes, if they're going to get nukes, they've already have them. They're just going to buy them. It's cheaper to buy them than it is to make them. And I mean, they're friends with Russia, they're friends with China, they're friends with North Korea. They do trade weapons trades with North Korea from time to time. If they were going to get nuclear warheads, they would just get North Korea to supply it for them. That type of thing. Again, it makes no sense for them to make their own program. I do believe their nuclear facility is going to be used for, enriching uranium for, basically, power plants and stuff like that. I believe that's what they're using it for now because I don't think they're at the level where they can make weapons-grade uranium. They could probably make dirty bombs, but they can't probably make the full, full weapons-grade. So at some point, yes, they will. I mean, as soon as they can get the technology, if they can get a hold of the technology, they're going to do it. But I think between now and then, they have probably just bought the warheads or are going to buy the warheads. That type of thing. They are working on missiles, so the other way they might go is chemical warfare. I mean, they have enough long-range rockets to reach, southern Europe or even midway through Europe if they need to. But their main target is Israel. The Iranians know that if they get invaded by the United States, they're gonna launch on Israel. That's what their official statement is. So that's their nuclear deterrent right there. Is okay. You try to take us out, we're gonna launch on you. And yes, Obama did pay for to release the U.S. soldiers that were caught a few months ago. Apparently just drifting into Iranian waters. And of course, there's been U.S. warships firing live rounds at the Iranian warships, even though they're blank rounds, firing them over Iranian warships, again to try to trigger something. The U.S. is sending soldiers, boots on the ground, like special ops guys into Iran for whatever reason. Exactly what I guess they're just doing recon or whatever. But they got caught, and $400 million, basically of ransom money. The Iranians extorted that type of thing. So they're on the mainstream media. They're trying to play it down, but it's pretty obvious at this point. Yeah. The Russians are selling off old. They're having a fire sale right now, kind of thing, of older Soviet equipment, Soviet era equipment. So that for their modernization program. One thing I said that watch for the Russians to do, and I can imagine off of this, watch them arm South America to the teeth. We know they sent to where was it? Where they're putting in Panama Canal to. I always forget. What the hell is it even? South American country, anyway. They sent like 70 or 80 T-72s there. So you're going to see little bits like that heading into South America. Mostly probably older equipment, but enough to kind of make South America kind of an unstable place in terms of for the CIA and stuff like that, where you might start seeing some older SA-11s and stuff show up. This will make it dangerous for Black Hawk helicopters and stuff like that, flying after the drug lords and stuff like that. So the Russians, I think what they're going to do is destabilize the U.S. border by arming up South American countries. Nicaragua, that's the country I'm thinking of. So they sent that. And plus they opened up the Russian radar station there. So right now we have Kaliningrad, Cuba, and Nicaragua is the three Russian places where, and probably Venezuela, 4 Russian places where they're getting intervened. The thing is with Venezuela, it's more they're using the ports. Same with Cuba, but they're opened up a radar station or surveillance station in Nicaragua and Cuba, and they've also have a naval. The reason why the U.S. Obama has lifted sanctions against Cuba is not for the Cuban people; it's to get U.S. bases into Cuba before the Russians really start expanding in Cuba, and then we have Cuban Missile Crisis 2.0. And I think Raul Castro is going to play both sides to a degree, but I think when he has to pick a side, he's going to pick the Russian side. Why they've always kind of leaned towards the communists or the Russia or whatever. It's the history of the country, right? So the poor Cuban people are going to be caught between another superpower. I don't think we'll see it like East Ukraine, West Ukraine, which I called that one pretty good. But we will see it. We will see it happen. All right, Turkey attacking the Kurds in Syria. Kurds destroyed a Turkish tank. I couldn't get a good visual on what the tank was because it was pretty far away. But again, I guess they got U.S.-made tow missiles too. And Turkey, basically, they're not really fighting ISIS at all in Syria. What they're doing is they're going across the border back and forth, and what they're doing is they're taking out Kurdish positions, which gives me a bit of a chill because I know my fellow Canadian soldiers are there somewhere. And what is Justin Trudeau going to say to the Turks when they well, they're not going to be accidentally killing our guys. They're going to kill, even if they know our guys are there, they're going to strike Kurdish positions, right? So if our guys are in that region, they're going to get them killed. They're going to get our guys killed. Is Canada going to go to war with a fellow NATO country? I don't know. If Turkey does kill our guys, though, we should completely pull out of there for sure. We shouldn't be involved in this at all. Oh yeah, but we have to fight ISIS. I would be okay with fighting ISIS if we were fighting ISIS. What the Kurds are really there to do is corral ISIS in keeping them into. The YPG is to keep the ISIS guys in Syria. That's it's like I've been saying, it's like herding cattle. Only the cattle are ISIS, and they're trying to keep them fighting Assad. That's the whole goal. That said, in Syria, there's a number 2 man in charge. I can't even pronounce his name. It's Allah something. Uh, and he was taken out. This guy is like a number 2 man to al-Baghdadi. So chances are this guy is either CIA or Mossad. Al-Baghdadi, he's considered ex-Mossad. There's no such thing as an ex-Mossad agent, unless they're dead, right? That type of thing. So as far as the Kurds fighting back against the Turks, again, this I think is what people are saying. It's a war within a war. I think that is true. I think the Kurds and the U.S. isn't really stepping up to the plate for the Kurds. They say, well, we're, trying to, persuade Turkey to be a little bit nicer or whatever. No, they're not. The Kurds are on their own. They might get a few things given to them to fight ISIS and stuff, but they really aren't being armed very well. ISIS is being much better armed by Israel and the United States than Kurds are. The Kurds, again, just to be enough of a deterrent to keep the ISIS guys corralled inside Syria. That's what they're using the Kurds for. And, of course, Erdogan's crackdown on the Kurds, of course, there's going to be a civil war throughout Turkey within the next year or two. We could see regime change there. Now, that said, it does look like Turkey has completely switched to the Russian side. They just haven't made it official yet. It's just in their actions. Again, other previous videos, that coup, was it the U.S. that did the coup? It's really hard to tell who did the coup. If the U.S. did the coup, then the Turks are going to go to the Russian side. Now, the coup could have been faked by the Turks and have the Russians kind of help them a bit to make it look like the U.S. did it, and then have the excuse to switch to the Russian side. But if you look at the pipelines, look at all the stuff, Erdogan apologizing to Putin for shooting down that Su-24 last year, which could have started, if the Russians really wanted war, they could have started the Third World War on that as a hot war. We're in the Third World War, we're still in a Cold War. Which is a cold, lukewarm war because Syria is the hot aspect of the war right now. It's just when it goes into Europe and stuff like that, that's when everybody's going to notice that it's an actual war. All right, so Philippines threatens China to basically to the last man if they get out of line with the Philippines. That kind of the leader, I can never remember the guy's name, but every time this guy makes it on the TV, he says something just spectacular. Like, he's basically looked at Donald Trump and started basically becoming a shock jock type of guy to get elected. And I guess he got elected. And one of the things he told China is that if they push too hard, that the Philippines is going to fight to the death and basically to the bones of our soldiers, right to the bones of our soldiers. So basically the Philippines is, getting into the pissing contest too, that type of thing. China basically is getting ready for Missile Palooza. Like I said, World War III is going to be a cruise missile fest, and China is no exception. They have probably more types of cruise missiles than the United States, but I don't think they have the numbers yet. But they're working on that, and they're stockpiling missiles for the U.S. Like they're the Russian and basically Chinese doctrine is really not geared towards anybody other. China's a little different. Their doctrine is against basically a few surrounding countries, United States, Japan, Vietnam, Philippines, South Korea, Taiwan, all the way up to Australia. So the Chinese are ready to fight that many people up to that distance. Again, an island hopping war seems to be what they're preparing for. They're putting radar stations all over the place, building islands. But everybody's building islands right now, and nobody else is. They're trashing on China for arming all these little islands that they're building. And stuff like that, but nobody's mentioning the Philippines building islands or Indonesia and all those places. Indonesia is still trying to play the middle of the road, but we'll wait and see. Once China goes hot into a war, anybody else in the region is going to be an enemy. It's pretty much that simple. Except for North Korea, they'll be the useful idiot. North Korea is basically to take out South Korea. But I think China will unleash North Korea on South Korea. If they think war is, that's their preemptive strike, is to get the U.S. fighting in South Korea, wear down their troops there, that type of thing. Kind of like what the U.S. is trying to do with the Ukraine, is to get Russia to fight in the Ukraine to wear down the Russian troops, so that when NATO does attack, the Russians are depleted. Not going to happen. The Russians are too smart for it. I think the Chinese are too smart for it. That type of thing. So this chess game is kind of a very incremental, very connect the dots type of thing. But that said, they are stockpiling a lot of missiles. This is probably mostly they're coastal. The Chinese do have tons of coastal defense, missile defense. They're Dongfang, 9, Dongfang 11, Dongfang 21, Dongfang 31. They have all those things. These things they have all kinds of new vehicles that are coming out in the last, PLO parade that they did, PLA, parade that they did last year. They had these new machines, not exactly sure. They look like some sort of an APC, but some of them looked also very electronic warfare-ish, and we'll be getting into that because they are working on their electronic warfare. They know that's where they need to be strong in order to take out U.S. warships, and really the Chinese are really looking at the warships, because without the warships, the U.S. really can't do much to China, because one of the things is that air power, again, with the air defenses, if the Chinese have strong air defenses and strong coastal defenses, you're taking out the air power via that. And I mean, yes, you could send, B-52. I mean, if the Americans get all 1,500 B-52s back in service, I don't know how many they got in service right now, not too many, but that would break the bank of the United States just trying to fly them damn things. They're a big airplane, and they suck up a lot of juice. B-52s, like the Chinese know those things are coming from by the time they leave the Sunshine Coast, right? And at Guam, Guam really doesn't have much of a chance against China. It's big. It's big enough of an island, but the problem is if U.S. warships are taken out in that region. Okay, remember the United States doesn't have that many modernized warships. Maybe if you add it all in, maybe 70 warships. So the Chinese really only have to get really lucky with 70 cruise missiles. Okay, now the thing is the warships that are in the area, there's only more, a handful of warships in the area. There's, it's the most built-up region that the United States is in. They have more warships there than anywhere else. The submarine fleet is, I forget how many, 60 submarines or something like that. The United States isn't the number one. North Korea is the number one for submarines. They have 75 submarines. Thing is, the North Korean stuff is as old as the hills. Some of it is fairly modern, but by modern I mean the newest submarine is probably from a Kylo submarine, Kylo knockoff submarine from 1982 or something like that. Everything else is older. The Chinese, they do have a few new submarines from 2012. They don't have as many as the United States. I can't remember. I remember the top 10. Like the people that are the top 10 are people that like Iran had more submarines than the United States, but they're all midget submarines. Like they're not. They're not like Los Angeles classes or Sea Wolves or Virginia class type submarines. The most advanced are going to be Russia and the United States and maybe Britain and maybe France have the most advanced submarines. Germany has they got the U-212 and 214 U-boats. They have those, which is an SSK class, kind of like what we have, but a little bit newer. And then I think who is it that has it? I can't remember which South American country, but they're basically they got the Scorpion, which is a little fast attack sub, SSK class as well. But those subs are not going as far, right? That said, getting back to Missilepalooza, it's basically that's what everybody's building up on. The United States is starting to rework their cruise missiles. Cruise missiles definitely have a value because you can send tons of them in from multiple angles, and the Russian cruise missiles that were fired out of the not the Mediterranean, but out of the Black Sea into Syria was a hell of a show of force. I think it was something like 32 missiles from one frigate destroyer, one destroyer and a frigate that they fired from the Black Sea, and these were some of the not the newest of missiles, but newer missiles. Older missiles with the upgrades, and they all 32 hit their targets the way they wanted, going completely nap of the earth, low level. Most of them weren't detected coming in. Now, mind you, firing a cruiser, you can fire a freaking baseball and through Syria, and they wouldn't be able to detect it. Syria doesn't have that kind of radar capability. Stuff like that. The Iranians seem to be getting better with their electronic warfare, but we'll get into that in a moment. Now, for those of you who say, "Oh, nuclear war will never happen," nuclear war will never happen. Again, we got to look at the not individual incidents, but the thing as a whole, connecting the dots. And the DHS right now is buying a whole bunch of nuclear radiation detecting equipment Just, I don't know whether they just decided to do this. So they're getting ready for something. And if you haven't also heard, I'll probably, because I wrote things down, the DHS is going to be taking over, overseeing the election. So that almost guarantees a Hillary Clinton win. Basically, it's the equivalent of the Gestapo taking over the election. That's pretty much it. So their take on it was they're going to take over monitoring the election, because the U.S. election, because there's too many vital things at stake. So, again, if you use wrong think or vote the wrong way, I guess they're going to correct it for you. No, you meant to vote for Hillary, not Trump. That type of thing. The other thing, this one's actually kind of, again, getting things more tense, is the 7th largest scale mobilization drill in Ukraine with the United States and NATO members. This drill is really putting the Russians nervous, that type of thing. Basically, I forget how many thousands of people are now in Poland, Lithuania, Czech Republic, Romania, and Western Ukraine. But it's a lot. And everybody's in there, all NATO's in there. The United States is doing that. They're doing landing craft on the shore near Crimea with U.S. troops. I think what the U.S. is trying to do is to get an accidental shooting between Russian Federation, or, in the Crimea, or Eastern Ukraine, near the border. If they can get U.S. troops killed, that makes a case to go to war with in Ukraine. Oh, well, they're killing our troops now that we're just innocently training, the Ukrainian military and the neo-Nazi Azov battalion beside, where the fighting, the front line. Oh, they were just happened to train them on the front line. They got killed. Oh, well, we got to go to war there now. So that's what the U.S. is really trying to get a war going there. With them to get into it. Because then, again, and we have to ask the question, Ukraine aside, whether you're for Ukraine or against Ukraine, and I'm neutral on this one, believe it or not, though some people might think I'm one way or the other. But I'm looking at this, and this whole war wouldn't have happened if there wasn't U.S. regime change brought on by Victoria Nuland and George Soros. Those are the people that worked out there. And on behalf of the U.S. central bankers, which is the Rothschild Rockefeller kind of organization, that destabilized Ukraine and created all this chaos in the first place. That wouldn't be there. So the Russians would have never had an excuse to take the Crimea. So the Russians are just saying thanks. Thanks, we saw it coming, and thanks. The next thing is that Ukraine is completely broke. The other thing is that they're not even a NATO country. Why are we this involved in the Ukraine when they're not even a NATO country? That's the part. And they can never join, unless the U.S. wants to call the bluff of Russia. They can't join Ukraine to NATO. Article 5 gets kicked in right away. With all the Russian aggression, of course, right? So again, and the Russians can bleed, they've got guys there. They can bleed that one out for years and years and years to come. It's not going to break their military. If anything, it's a good training exercise for them. Same as Syria. So again, that's what's going on there. Good news, especially if you're a small business owner or a farmer or anti-globalist, the TTIP and TTP have pretty much failed in Europe, meaning nobody's going to go for it. Now, the problem is Justin Trudeau here is over in China, opening up 70 new passport things for China, so it looks like we're going to get a Chinese invasion. Again, he seems to be just like his dad. The whole time, it seems like all they talked about was the canola deal, for Canada to send cleaner, like the Chinese have actually regulated our canola, said, well, we're not going to buy more canola from you unless you clean it up a bit. So there's that. But that'll put up the cost of our canola or whatever. Which is really weird that that's the number one issue when Justin Trudeau goes to China. But however, we're going to open up 70. It's for people that want to come in on tourism. No, the Chinese, they do tourism, that's, sure. But, remember, the demographic of British Columbia is 27% of the population is Chinese. So I think that's going to double in the next couple of years. Thank you to Trudeau. Again, we don't need to be bringing in 250,000 people per year. Nothing against anybody else coming in. We don't have the economy. And our economy is the lowest it's been in 6 years, since 2009. We're basically shrinking at, I think, 1.6%. So basically all the growth that the Conservative government kind of brought in over that minute growth, like when Justin Trudeau was, and this is where people are stupid because they don't follow politics. If you would have understood that the minute growth we had in Canada under the Harper government for 7 out of 10 years. Okay, growth is growth. We were the only country in the G7 that was growing really at all. And growth is growth. Can you imagine if we actually if the world had a stable economy and banking system? We would be lightning growth. But the Harper government was able to keep the growth going just enough because they focused on the private sector. Yes, they had to deregulate a lot. Yes, they did a lot of austerity. But really, they were so incrementalist you didn't notice it. They were maybe not the best government, but the best government we probably had in a long time. That's not saying much, but they kept the ship off the rocks. Trudeau has pretty much just thrown the anchor through the center of the boat. And now I'm pretty sure, right now the foreign investment is, Trudeau's was in, I think, the Philippines or whatever, giving them money or Taiwan or one of the two places, giving them money for investment. Now he's over in China. I'm sure the Chinese will get billions. Not a job over here at all. But anyway, I digress. Bunker Fest. Russia, Finland, and Germany and China prepare for the worst. They are building bunkers like crazy. If you haven't heard, Germany in the past couple of weeks telling people to have disaster kits, be prepared, just in case like another terrorist attack or something comes in. Remind you, this comes on the heels of the German intelligence saying that they estimate there's at least 43,000 jihadists loose in Germany. So what could possibly go wrong? Merkel saying, "Don't blame my poor little jihadis or my little. They're just innocent refugees. Anybody that comes from those places are just refugees looking for asylum and a better chance at life." Durka Durka Allahu Akbar. There we go. If you haven't seen the recent boatloads of North Africans, they weren't going Allahu Akbar on their 500-man dinghies, and there's like 2 or 3 of them there. As soon as they hit the shore, Allahu Akbar, and it's not, oh my God, we made the seas. No, it was more of that throaty kind of, Allahu Akbar, we're going to conquer now kind of sound to it. The women and children, I guess they must have thrown them overboard because there wasn't one woman or child amongst these fighting-age men at all. But those are Merkel's. Merkel invited them, we don't have to work. We don't have to do anything. We want free stuff because Merkel invited us. And again, I don't really blame those people for taking advantage of the system that's designed to take advantage of. Problem is the people are going to have to pay the piper on that one, which in turn is going to probably one of the reasons why Bunker Fest is so big amongst the world elites right now. And I'm going to get back into the bunkers in a second, but I'm trying to get through all this stuff. There's just so much stuff. Okay. If Finland joins NATO, Putin says he's going to send troops to that region. Finland, it could not be in the worst possible place to be in World War III. Just as bad as World War II, and Russia and Finland went at it in World War II. Finland did okay then, but Finland is not prepared for a full Russian aggression, real Russian aggression, should that come to it. So between Sweden and Finland, they're both talking about joining NATO. I don't think Sweden has done it yet. I think they're in the process of doing it. But Putin has said to Sweden a few months ago, if you join NATO, there's a warhead with your name on. There's warheads with your name on it. You become targeted. That's the price of joining NATO. So what the Russians are saying that if the United States gets into war, and even if it's not another NATO country, they attack all NATO countries. This is part of the MAD scenario. This is part of the Russian doctrine. They're not going to leave a NATO country standing, including here in Canada. Even if we don't start it doesn't matter. NATO is one gang. That type of thing. That's why I think a lot of people are trying to get out of NATO. And you see a lot of opposition to it throughout Eastern Europe. That's why I think there's so much push for this new this new European army. It's to basically get out of NATO. So get out of the EU, get out of NATO, then get out of the United Nations, and then maybe humanity might have a chance, right? But the thing is the United States is the number one funder for NATO, pretty much. That said, also in Finland, with the migrant attacks, the migrants going around burning the crap out of people's houses and stuff like that. In Finland, of course, there was 100 on 100. 100 Finns got into a battle royale with some migrants. So again, the 10th Crusade is picking up there too. Okay, Yamantau bunkers. Basically, Bill Clinton funded these things. This is makes me think with what Hillary Clinton has done and what Bill Clinton has done. I kind of wonder if they were sleeper Russian agents. I have no proof of this. It's just something I'm throwing out there. It seems a little odd that the coincidence is that when Bill Clinton went, or was just Bill Clinton so incompetent and so stupid? But when you start to look how these people are, you really wonder: is there really a coincidence there or not? We know the Clintons are corrupt. So Bill Clinton, back when he was the Grand Poobah of the United States, tried to do nuclear de-escalation by giving $1 billion to the Russians to and I remember this program quite well, to basically get rid of warheads and get rid of their nuclear stockpile. In turn, the Russians took the money and they put it into their Yamantau bunker, which is basically a 400 square mile in size bunker that basically it's all underground. It goes down something like 3,000 feet or something like that. I think Yamantau, the rough translation is Evil Mountain. Now, I know in the Ural Mountains they've got underground bunkers and stuff like that where they have all kinds of aircraft and weapons and stuff like that. So basically they EMP-proof all the stuff so that if they are nuked, they still have enough of a military to be well-equipped enough that, okay, all the nukes are done, but we could still fight. They still have a military. And of course, the Russians have been opening up fallout shelters and stuff like that. Over 5,000 of them. A lot of them around Moscow and all the major cities, St. Petersburg, etc., throughout Russia. And I guess that's for all their elites or whatever. So 5,000 of these bunkers have been open since 2010. And this Yamantau one, they've been really working on it big time since 2012, which I remember seeing the things also in the Ural Mountains. I think Yamantau Mountain is in that region. Again, they've been putting in, the latest and greatest of equipment in there. During the Cold War, they used this thing. They used this thing for, same thing. If there was nukes, there would still be. Think of Cheyenne Mountain as well, or the what's that tunnel there that goes it's like 1,400 miles of tunnel in I don't know if it's in Maine or wherever in the United States. Anyway, there's been stuff going into these tunnels in the United States and again, they opened Cheyenne Mountain again. All these Cold War relics are the silos are waking up, so to speak. It's very scary because those things you only prepare them for one thing. They're not impaired. You don't open Cheyenne Mountain because there's jihadists in your country. You don't even open it for a civil war. You open it because the nukes are going to be coming. That's why you open it. And the same with this Evil Mountain. And so did the Clintons purposely fund this? Help fund this? With the other thing with Hillary Clinton's recent come out of how basically using a Canadian uranium mine that they own and selling uranium to the Russians. Okay, Russia, if they're such weapons, an aggressor, why would we be selling them uranium? You know what I mean? That type of thing. Now, in Yamantau Mountain, back in it was either 2010 or 2011 or early 2012. I can't remember what year. This is why I say go over some of my older videos. These little dots, these things, they might not mean nothing then, but it's like, okay, it makes sense now. So this Evil Mountain is opening up. And in that time, there was the British had intercepted a signal that they hadn't heard since the Cold War. They don't know what it is. It's some sort of encrypted Russian signal. And it went live, and it's been going on solid. It goes on for a few weeks, and then it shuts off. And it goes on for a few weeks, and then it shuts off. And it's been going on solid, I believe, since 2010, 11, 12, whatever it was that I heard this. And it hasn't been on since the Cold War. They can't decode it. They don't know what it is. It's very encrypted. It's definitely an older signal. And they don't know what it is. And it's coming in those regions of Russia. So is that the dead man switch going live? Now, the dead man switch, how that works is, I guess it works based upon the DEFCON system. If we're at DEFCON 5, it's off. If we're at DEFCON 3, they bring in the guys to get ready to turn it on. At DEFCON 2, they turn it on. At DEFCON 1, it's fully manned, ready to go. Now, how the dead man switch is pretty much self-explanatory. Rather than punching codes in to launch the nukes, you punch codes in to stop them from launching. Now, should these guys die, those nukes launch automatically. Now, where do they punch the codes in from? That I don't know. Are they on station? Whatever. That type of thing. I think the fail-safe insurance of it is probably, they would probably not have the people on site for this. They probably have people on site to monitor, but the codes are probably punched in probably from the Kremlin or someplace like that. So if those people are killed, that system, you don't have to worry about manning that system. It's already going to go by itself. It's a dead man switch, right? So it's kind of, it triggers the Napoleon effect. When Napoleon went to take Moscow, they burnt down Moscow. So if we can't have it, nobody can. Well, it's the same thing with these nukes. If we can't survive, nobody can. So that's what they're doing. So Yamantau, Evil Mountain, we got to keep an eye on that. North Korea basically has a lot of defectors going on right now, and they always do, but this time it's more like military brass, and they're thinking about sending in assassination squads into South Korea. And they do this from time to time to kill the defectors, because they can give valuable Kim Jong-un secrets. If you give away my secrets that I wear pink panties while I watch Pokemon or play Pokemon, I will kill you. I will kill you. I will hit you with my big pudgy fist. Do not threaten me. I am a very powerful dictator. I am so popular in my country, I got 249% of the last vote. Yes, the rest we shot. Yeah. North Korean subs too have been launching, they've been doing a bit of a missile fest too, but their last few launches were arguably, semi-accurate. The recent one landed into the Japanese air identification zone down there. So, but the thing is this time the missile worked. It went where they wanted it to. So the North Koreans are slowly progressing. Again, I don't think they're definitely not a threat to the world, but they are a threat in the region. I think they're more of a threat to South Korea than just about anybody. That type of thing. The one missile they have, it'd be like, oh my God, North Korea is about to launch a missile at us. Okay, we'll take it out next Tuesday, because it takes them a week to set the damn thing up anyway. You know what I mean? But that said, the North Korean subs, again, because they have so many, sitting there, again, working in strategy with the Chinese. If the Chinese gave their subs the places to be at the right time, all they got to do is basically sit and wait with the torpedo bay doors open. They'll only get one torpedo off, but if they're lucky, one North Korean submarine per U.S. warship would be a game changer. Again, North Korean subs, the older 50s, 60s subs, are easier to detect if they're running. But if you shut them down, shut down the engines or whatever, and just are waiting behind the other side of an island, they could. I think what they would do is harbor ambushes on certain areas. They'd probably take out shipping and tankers, stuff like that. The Chinese would take out warships. But that said, if you could take out a supply ship, that's almost as good as taking out a warship. So the North Koreans, they could be a nuisance in the area for sure. I don't think their subs are that good. But subs, even a Type 7 U-boat in the hands of a skillful submariners is deadly in today's standards, even with the old torpedoes and everything like that. If you know what your kill box is, if you know how to be a sea wolf, again, wait and ambush. Okay, they'll hear you coming, but lure them into an ambush. U-boats did that time and time again. What they used to call the wolf pack is U-boat comes out, goes on the surface, snorkels, make sure he gets spotted by a destroyer or whatever, he dies. Makes enough noise, he doesn't. They don't do silent running. They go down, they run full diesel, and the destroyer's tight on them. They go around a little island, they go around another little island, they come around another island, they kill the engines, they go silent run, they rig for red, silent running, they go deep. The destroyer comes around, but they don't realize, okay, yeah, there he is, they're just hiding right there, and all of a sudden, torpedoes just hit them from 8 different angles. Why? Ambush. Wolfpack. The North Koreans have enough subs to do that. They might not have high-tech subs, but they have enough subs to pull that kind of World War Type 2 tactic on. And when you're thinking hunting Red October, you're thinking of hunting an Akula submarine for 500 miles or whatever, or tracking a Typhoon sub for an Oscar 2 or whatever, or a Kylo sub or an Akula 2 sub. Okay, we're going to track them for 3 days. Okay, fine. That type of thing. It's a cat and mouse game. Those are the lone wolves. But if they're working in tandem as a wolf pack, hunter-killer runner, think about it like that. It's just a term I'm coining. If I was taking a Canadian O-boat out and had to contend against a Russian destroyer, and there was, out of the 17 boats that we had, if we had like 3 of them, we could probably take down that destroyer but the plan would have to be like 2 weeks in advance. Okay, we're going to go. We know how fast they can run. We know how fast we can run. We're going to use the ocean. We're going to play cat and mouse. We're going to lead them right to you. Be ready in 2 days. And trust me, that's how they're going to do it. The newer ships, they kind of more go. The newer subs kind of go for the throat right away, but they're not expecting a lot of other subs in the area. That said, the Russians do kind of use that kind of gang up mentality. Where there's a typhoon, there's an Akula. Where there's an Oscar, there's a Kylo. They work like that. The U.S., they got the Virginia class subs and the Ohio class subs. So obviously the Virginia class subs are going to be protecting the Ohio class subs with the warships and the airplanes. So it's a big system like that. But again, the goal is, and sometimes the Ohio's, I believe, just because the way they don't want to draw attention to these boomer subs, so what they do is they let them run, completely away from everybody else, to be as quiet as possible, so that there's not a lot of disturbing in the water, so you can't detect them. But the Russians, they do tend to, be within a certain range of each other, so that if a warship, a U.S. Fleet is moving along close together, a Russian sub could find it. Now, if they come back for the Russian sub, other Russian subs could be alerted to, again, be that hunter-killer type thing, come to the aid of the other sub. I'm pretty sure everybody does that, and that's how they do it. The difference is the North Koreans have 70 subs to work with. Old or new, again, once that torpedo is fired, yes, you're going to know where the sub is, and you'll probably take it out, but if they have a good getaway plan, hiding behind a coral reef or something like that, it could make them harder to find, harder to detect, that type of thing. Think of them like an underwater Apache helicopter. That could make the North Korean subs, again, a nuisance in the area. I don't think they'd be that successful, but they could probably, again, against somebody's harbor, they can get 4 torpedoes out, they can block a harbor, that type of thing. They would probably take out a cruise ship just to block a harbor, whatever it is, or a freighter, or anything big that would, basically jam up the harbor. That's where the North Koreans become dangerous with the subs. But anyway, moving along. The other thing is, I already mentioned DHS taking over the election, overseeing the election. U.S. sending Super Cobras to Libya, again, because that war front is heating up. Iran attacking U.S. drones. I think in 2011 they got one stealth drone. In 2012 they hacked another drone. So the Iranians, again, they're working on that high-tech stuff. Plus, the Russians are probably giving them all, well, maybe not giving them, but selling them all kinds of stuff. We know that the S-300 missile systems are now live in Iran. So that, again, takes the Israeli strike off of Iran. If Israel tries to take out the Iranian nuclear facility, I think you're just going to have a bunch of dead Israeli pilots. The Israeli pilots are good, don't get me wrong, but, that's what that system has been, that system is definitely hard to get around. It's one of the best in the world. Operation Seabreeze, U.S. landing near the Crimea in July. It's just coming out now into Ukraine, so again provoking that area. Germany drafting doctors for war. They've already drafted, I think, a few. And remember, Germany came out and said that Russia is an enemy. They've said that. So, if there's regime change needed anywhere, it's in Germany. They got to get the Merkel government out of there, all of them. Again, they're going to get... I mean, it's bad enough that you got a migrant crisis. I'd hate to see the Germans have to deal with a migrant crisis and then have to deal with a Russian invasion and be called racist and bigot all at the same time and Nazi. Oh my God, the poor bastards. You know what I mean? This one is big. Again, this is a big dot that I don't know how else to put it other than if you can't see the connection that we're in a Cold War 2.0 and how dangerous the world is right now. The world is ripe for so many revolts, so many wars, so many whatever. I'm not saying it's imminent. I'm just saying one miscalculation and we're going to be in the thick of it. Russia has been mobilizing, particularly on the border of Ukraine, we know that, about 40,000 troops. But they've mobilized almost 250,000 troops right now throughout Russia, which is the most since they invaded the Czechoslovakia back in the 1960s or 50s or whatever it was. That's the most. Yes, that's the most Russian troops on alert since then. So the Russians are definitely on alert. There's no doubt about that. So 250,000 Russian troops on alert. That's the financial industry is getting ready for a economic nuclear winter. Now, the collapse, I still say there's no collapse till war comes. That's what they want to use to blame the collapse on. But people are starting to notice that the economy isn't working. The housing industry in Canada is really cooling off. The oil sands have pretty much been destroyed to a great degree, although things are getting back up to normal. So we've taken that hit. And when you got to think of Canada as the canary in the coal mine. We haven't hit our 2008 collapse yet. We're going to go right to a depression. Yes, and probably under the Trudeau government. Again, by the third year of Trudeau's prime minister being prime minister, Canada may collapse completely, like Greece, Spain, Italy, worse than that probably. It's probably going to be that bad. Now, mind you, when we collapse, it means the rest of the world is pretty much folded. If we're not in a war by that time, but it's hard to say. Most people are predicting early 2017 for the collapse. Right now, that we're moving into September, which is September, October, the worst months of the year for the stock market and all that. Now, the stock market is not the world economy, but again, since pretty much forever, I haven't been hearing, particularly since Trudeau's taken over, I haven't heard of anything happening in Canada but layoffs in the thousands. We lost something like 70-some-odd thousand jobs, which out of 36 million people doesn't sound like much. But every quarter, if you're losing 70,000 jobs, 40,000 of them which were full-time, again, this is the trend around the world. Everybody's losing jobs. At best, we're going to a part-time service economy nation. People making $20 an hour are now making $8.50 an hour or $15 an hour, whatever the minimum wage is. And a lot of people are getting laid off that can't afford because the places can't afford to pay minimum wage, or the robot economy is coming in. Again, what are we going to do with all the people when the robots take over, right? Putin snubs the UN General Assembly. Like, why would Putin go to there anyway? Because they're just going to bash on him anyway. So it's like the UN is the Rockefeller, Rothschild, Anglo-American Empire, petrodollar, NATO. It's all one system, right? The United Nations is a big linchpin and what makes all this war happen around the world. They sound like they're do-gooders and for peace and prosperity, but they're really not. The China-Russia sea drills going to go on in the South China Sea are on hold for now because everybody's making such a big deal out of it. Oh my God, they're going to do drills in the sea. Meanwhile, South Korea and the United States have been doing, drills like crazy, provoking North Korea as much. Again, I'm not for the North Korean regime at all. I mean, it really pisses me off when they talk about getting rid of Bashar al-Assad and then don't go after, you're going to do regime change in Syria because Syria can't defend itself against the United States or Israel right now. So yeah, they're going to do that. They're going to arm ISIS. And again, this is openly admitted. DHS, CIA agents, the good hellhounds that are out there have actually came out and said, no, the CIA did arm ISIS. John McCain, his moderate rebels. I mean, almost every leader that's running ISIS is in a picture with John McCain. Because these are the good guys. These are his friends. Again, I think John McCain, his name is mud now anyway. Anybody that still supports McCain, he is not an honorable man. He is a douchebag. I used to like him. I thought he was a good guy at first. Back in 2008 when it was between him and Obama, I was like, I knew who John McCain was because of, he's the F-4 Phantom pilot or whatever. But I didn't know he also got a lot of people killed on the, on the aircraft carrier there. I always call it the Kitty Hawk. It wasn't the Kitty Hawk. It was, everybody always reminds me anyway. Flame Out McCain ended up catching some stuff on fire, and 200 men died because of this idiot. And the thing about that, he was in Vietnam and stuff like that. I remember following him for a little while. I knew who he was. And, that guy ran for senator. Oh, good for him, And then now you hear him how he talks. It's like, we need to do airstrikes against the Russians. And it was a day or so before when he said we need to start shooting down Russian airplanes that Turkey shot down. The Russian bomber that was arguably in running parallel to Turkish airspace for like a few seconds. In other words, the F-16s that shot down the Russian airplane were waiting in ambush. it was less than 14 or 15 seconds to get that aircraft across that little space that they said they crossed it. And the Russians said, no, we were in the Syrian side. So it's a disputed area, whether it's Turkish airspace or whatever. But either way, if you shoot down aircrafts that come into your, the edge of your border 20 seconds after or 30 seconds after they're there, I mean, okay, if they're heading in, I can understand and they don't turn back. But there wasn't even enough time to really give them a warning. I think that was all fake. So McCain says that, and then that happens and they get shot down. Coincidence? I think not. I think that was a provoking. That's how crazy these people are. Again, the miscalculation. So, lots of information there, lots of dots. I'm going to try to, get a little bit more like that. I do like to speculate too, but again, I really want people to get impressed that everything on this list is stuff that's happened, and happening. Okay, everything on this. That's what my videos are about. It's not about fear and stuff like that. I don't take it from a religious point. Some people do. That's fine. I have no problem with that. But when you're delivering this kind of information, you have to paint it in dots that people will understand. So if this is the first World War III update you're watching, you're probably not in tune with what's going on in the world, but you're now a little bit more, oh my God, is it really that crazy? It's worse than that. Because it's only an hour show. These are the short videos. I will be doing a global view pretty soon, and that's usually the one that gets people really thinking, and sometimes it scares people too. It's like, is it really that bad? And it's like, it's worse than that. Because this is just the stuff I can find. Can you imagine what we're not being told? God, who knows? But that said, there's always stuff I'm missing. I could probably talk for 10 hours on this subject per day straight and not cover everything. It's moving that fast. And it's not just because we live in an age where media they're more prominent. It's because it is ramping up. So anyway, I gotta leave it at that. So if you like this kind of content, please consider making a donation to the channel. Links down below. Don't forget to say your piece of what you want done with the money that's been donated to the channel. Next to that, my TSU link is down below. I don't know if that site's going to come back up, but if it does, you might be able to make a couple of bucks there. Rate, subscribe, share, comment, like, be true to yourself, be true to others, always do the right thing, and have yourselves a great day. I'm kidding you. G'day, hi, and welcome. People, my headphones, my speakers are not working. All right, World War III update. And boy, do I have a list for you guys. You guys are always out there. I'm going to have to get with back scratcher. This is like my scepter. You guys are like,
where's the World War III updates? Hey, what, you stop doing them? You don't do enough of them. You should do more of them.
Okay, well, you're going to get it now. You're going to get it now. All right, so anyway, I've been, for the last couple of days, all I've been doing is write down just about every little thing I could possibly get. A lot of research. Oh, that stuff's good. It's ongoing. That one's blueberry and peach, I think. Oh, it's really tasty. And, oh my God, I don't even know where to start. I'm going to be a bit all over the map like I normally am. Again, for those of you that might be joining me for the very first time on World War III update, I'm not one of those gloom and doomers that World War III is imminent. I've already done, tons of videos. And I always tell people, don't be afraid to go over even some of my older World War III videos. I date them by the year, not by the actual date. So it's like, I believe I started in 2010. It was it might have been just World War III updates. I really don't remember the very first one. It kind of grew into that series, right? So, but then I started doing them by year. But sometimes even if you go back a few years, what you find is some of the stuff I was talking about back then is happening now. Because this stuff plays out as it plays out. It's really about connecting the dots so people can get an idea of what's going on in the world. Now, is the world any crazier than it's ever been? Well, no, the world's always been a crazy place. We know that. But one thing that is now, what's different now, is we are crazy in the nuclear age. And really, the things that we're seeing, even during the first Cold War, it is more active now than what it was during the first Cold War. The first Cold War, the men were very stern and ready to respond on all sides, but most of them actually responded with caution. They were a lot more delicate. Now what we have is really psychopathic, reckless leaders that, throw out. In the first Cold War, if you were to say we're going to preemptively strike Russia, that could have started the war. That's how intense it was back then. Now what it is they're threatening Russia all the time to the point where Russia is completely built up for the Third World War, and so is China. And the rhetoric's going up and up and up. The difference is also too the Russians and the Chinese. they're a little bit better at this game to keep us out of the war. Again, I'm not a fan of either government of the Russians or the Chinese, but you can clearly see that they are trying not to get into the war. They've had so many opportunities to respond. It's not funny. So some sort of black swan event is what's probably going to get us, a miscalculation of some sort. All right, so anyway, I'm going to start off, I guess, on this page. So we're going to go into Iran, and in Iran, this is going to throw the Greater Israel Project out of whack, because Iran is putting S-300 missile systems around its nuclear facilities. The one nuclear facility that Israel keeps saying that they're making bombs, they're making warheads, Again, I don't think the Iranians, if they have nukes, if they're going to get nukes, they've already have them. They're just going to buy them. It's cheaper to buy them than it is to make them. And I mean, they're friends with Russia. They're friends with China. They're friends with North Korea. They do trade weapons trades with North Korea from time to time. If they were going to get nuclear warheads, they would just get North Korea to supply it for them. That type of thing. Again, it makes no sense for them to make their own program. I do believe their nuclear facility is going to be used for, enriching uranium for, basically, power plants and stuff like that. I believe that's what they're using it for now, because I don't think they're at the level where they can make weapons-grade uranium. They can probably make dirty bombs, but they can't probably make the full, full weapons-grade. So, at some point, yes, they will. I mean, as soon as they can get the technology, if they can get a hold of the technology, they're going to do it. But I think between now and then, they have probably just bought the warheads or are going to buy the warheads. That type of thing. They are working on missiles, so the other way they might go is chemical warfare. I mean, they have enough long-range rockets to reach, southern Europe or even midway through Europe if they need to. But their main target is Israel. The Iranians know that if they get invaded by the United States, they're gonna launch on Israel. That's what their official statement is. So that's their nuclear deterrent right there. Is okay, you try to take us out, we're gonna launch on you. And yes, Obama did pay for to release the U.S. soldiers that were caught a few months ago. Apparently just drifting into Iranian waters. And of course, there's been U.S. warships firing live rounds at the Iranian warships, even though they're blank rounds, firing them over Iranian warships, again to try to trigger something. The U.S. is sending soldiers, boots on the ground, like special ops guys into Iran for whatever reason. Exactly what I guess they're just doing recon or whatever. But they got caught in $400 million, basically of ransom money. The Iranians extorted that type of thing. So. They're on the mainstream media. They're trying to play it down, but it's pretty obvious at this point. The Russians are selling off old. They're having a fire sale right now, kind of thing, of older Soviet equipment, Soviet era equipment, so that for their modernization program. One thing I said that watch for the Russians to do, and I can imagine off of this, watch them arm South America to the teeth. We know they sent to where was it? Where they're putting in Panama Canal to. I always forget. What the hell's the name of it? South American country, anyway. They sent like 70 or 80 T-72s there. So you're going to see little bits like that heading into South America. Mostly probably older equipment, but enough to kind of make South America kind of an unstable place in terms of for the CIA and stuff like that, where you might start seeing some older SA-11s and stuff show up. This will make it dangerous for Black Hawk helicopters and stuff like that, flying after the drug lords and stuff like that. So the Russians, I think what they're going to do is destabilize the U.S. border by arming up South American countries. Nicaragua, that's the country I'm thinking of. So they sent that. And plus they opened up the Russian radar station there. So right now we have Kaliningrad, Cuba, and Nicaragua is the three Russian places where, and probably Venezuela, 4 Russian places where they're getting intervened. The thing is with Venezuela, it's more they're using the ports. Same with Cuba, but they're opened up a radar station or surveillance station in Nicaragua and Cuba. And they've also have a naval the reason why the U.S. Obama